about opening the Florida beaches back up.
Yeah, their governor DeSantis, he finally put a close or stay at home order or whatever 3 weeks or so after it came for North Carolina, where I am now, and for most of the rest of the country, for whatever reason. And it really concerns me because uh, Miami, at least, is a very, very large place. There's a lot of people there. My brother works in a hospital, and both my parents are in their 60s, so like they're, really high on the, high risk for contamination, or if they do get sick, like it can get really bad. I still got two grandmothers that are in their 90s down there, so
Mm.
it's really concerning, like all around for me and for my family and for my wife's family. But again, like I said, like we're here. There's nothing we can do. I talk to my mom or my dad like every day, and I'll talk to my brother like every other day or so, and make sure they're all good. And so far so good. Knock on wood that they're doing okay. So all I can do is hope and pray that this will get under control sooner than later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, at least everybody can go back to the beach, right?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, we missed the beach, but I wouldn't even if we were home right now, I wouldn't risk going. Whether the beach closure was lifted or not. I wouldn't risk it right now.
Mm.
Well, that's
Yeah.
your stance is like you don't think is that from a educational, maybe like you're a teacher and all that, are you doing educational things, are you hearing things that maybe we're not privy to, maybe in your circle of teachers that are saying that, or is that just your personal?
No, like I mean, not exactly. Like the things that I hear really are just from like we're operating off of whatever our county or our district decides to do.
Right.
Every excuse me, every state, every county is different with how they are choosing to proceed or respond or react to what's been going on. And like I said, like I don't have any additional or extra information that, you know, nobody else should or shouldn't know, I would imagine. The only other extra information I get is just personal information from my family of them giving me updates of like, we're okay. And right now that's what matters the most to me right now, that they're all okay.
Yeah, well, I mean that's very important. A lot of these precautions that I think a lot of people are taking, because we're in Central PA and we don't have a lot of active cases of the coronavirus at this particular moment. Knock on wood, I don't have any right now, but you know, um,
Right.
regardless. And I think it's easy for people to quickly dismiss and say, "Well, I don't need to take these protective measures because they don't deal with it firsthand." Where they say, uh, it's not a big deal, it's not an issue here, and it's all a conspiracy, it's all made up or something. And instead of putting on these face masks and just humoring these guidelines because they really do keep people safe. You wouldn't talk to anybody in New York who was saying that this is all BS. We had a guest
Right.
on the show, Bobby Ho. He told me that two of his family's friends had died from the
Hmm.
coronavirus. So I mean, you can't say it's a joke anywhere else, or you say it's fictional or made up, and you wouldn't say that if you were in any of those other places. And I think you're totally right. People definitely should be privy to following those guidelines and to the full extent for people like your grandparents and so on and so forth. But I want to
Hmm.
introduce the show, everybody. How's it going? Dev here, Coach B, you know who it be. And we have our special guest today, Gabriel Rodriguez. Say what's going on, Gabriel. And also, I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here. I want you to introduce
Okay.
yourself and tell you about your podcast and everything that you do, and then we can kind of jump into it. So, whenever you're ready,
Sure.
introduce yourself.
All right. So, hello, everyone out there in internet land. Uh, my name is Gabriel Rodriguez. I'm originally from Miami, Florida, as I said. I have a podcast that's called Iyagikkun. Iyagikkun is the Korean word for storyteller. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it, as I say on the show. I have it tattooed right here. It is in Korean. Um, and my podcast is about the writing process. I am a teacher professionally, but I'm also a screenwriter by education. I have my master's in film with a screenwriting focus, and over the last 10 years, I've written and submitted several scripts for festivals and for indie films. And I was asked to write what are called spec scripts for Modern Family and American Dad a couple of years ago. And, right now I'm just pumping those scripts out and getting them ready for festivals to continue to promote my work as a screenwriter and hopefully get representation sooner than later. So that's what I've been working towards.
Awesome. Well, okay, so I see me and Coach, we have aspirations to make a film someday, he and I.
Okay.
So talking
Okay.
to you is going to be, I think, a very informative conversation. So, I mean, I don't even know where I want to start with all of the film and jargon and all of the, but I wanted to know this is an idea that I have because I'm writing. I'm currently trying to write film and screenwrite with no college experience whatsoever. I didn't go to film school or anything. Just
Right.
basically watching YouTube tutorials and listening to what people were saying. And of course, now that I have a professional standing before me, I feel it's best that I ask these questions now. So,
You flatter me.
yeah, well, of course, we're gonna have to gas you up, Gabriel. You're on the show, you know.
All right. All right. All right.
But anyway, would you say, Coach?
I said it's time to get busy.
That's right.
It's time to get busy. All right.
So here was the thing that I wanted to know. So a writing strategy that I've heard about, and I want you to tell us how you write and how you write your screenplays, like from a story, a narrative perspective. But
Right.
from my perspective, I think you usually write the characters first, and then you write the story. I've heard this phrase, and I feel like when I'm writing it, it just feels better. It's that the story doesn't happen to the characters happen to the story. Like you make these characters, and then they interact, and then you make these characters, and then you make a story, and then you say, how would these characters, based on how I created them, act in these situations? And then that's where really the thing comes together. So I'm curious, though, that's my take anyway, and what I
Right.
think works. But tell me how you write stories.
Sure. So the first rule about writing, for any genre, for any style of writing, if it's fiction, screenplays, anything like that, the first rule of writing is write what you know. A lot of stories are written from the perspective, the point of view of personal experience. That's rule number one. Um, and the other thing that I would say, and there is absolutely truth to what you're talking about creating the character first and letting uh, the character essentially vicariously live through the story itself.
Mm-hmm.
What I will say is that your main characters, they have to go through change. They have to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And without, it's called character development. And without character development, you're not going to have a story. Every screenplay, every movie that you've seen in a movie theater, in an American movie theater at least, um, they all follow a three-act structure. And whether it's, Finding Nemo or The Grudge or,
That's a
Sound of
sharp
Music,
contrast. That's a sharp
like,
contrast.
Sound of Music to Parasite, like all of those movies, they follow the same exact formula. It's the same exact structure every time. And for me, what I determine or how I determine a really good movie or a really good story is when these movies uh, obviously follow those guidelines, they follow that structure, and then they learn how to break those rules in a way that I didn't see it coming, but then when I go back and think about it, it still makes sense. That's the biggest challenge. Uh, and I'm jumping from like step one to step 500 here, but like that is essentially how I judge it, how I can determine or how I can see one film or one story better than another. It's all about following that three-act structure and then breaking those rules, but doing it in a way that is clever without completely tossing the formula out the window. Because if you toss the formula out the window, you have at best what's called an experimental film.
You have a Transformers movie.
Well, that's where I kind of.
Michael Bay. Don't get me started on Michael Bay. In fact, let me say this about Michael Bay.
He said, Coach, you heard him. He said, don't get me started on Michael Bay. And then as soon as he started saying it, he was like, hold on, but let me get started on Michael Bay.
I will say this.
I think Michael Bay's more the technical guy. I don't think I think he's telling the story through the camera and special effects and all that crazy shit.
And the boobs and the butts.
I mean, that's what Michael Bay is good at. Let's just call it what it is. Like, you give him $200 million to blow stuff up, and he will do it in a very convincing and entertaining way.
Right.
Michael Bay did two Ninja Turtles movies. Mm-hmm. And I'm a child of the 80s and 90s. I grew up on the Ninja Turtles. I got into martial arts because of the Ninja Turtles.
Oh, really? Okay, so that's a good connect.
Yeah.
Were you dressed up as one at like Halloween? Come on, man. Tell the truth.
Sure. Hold up. Look up the photo.
You kidding?
Are you still doing it?
Everyone docs Gabriel. Find the picture of him in the Ninja Turtle suit. Yeah. Are you still doing it?
No, I haven't done it in a minute. What I have been doing the last couple of years is I do a really good Mad Hatter.
Cosplay?
Adaptation. Yeah, like a Mad Hatter cosplay. But that is neither here nor there. I digress. I ramble a lot, by the way, so you gotta.
That's fine.
We're gonna jump in. Trust us.
No. But what happened with Michael Bay, and when the Ninja Turtles movie came out, the first one, I saw it and I was like, no. And then the second one came out, and I was just so offended by it. I was so upset by the stupidity of it. I literally, through my rage, wrote a fan film, a fan fiction, origin story of the Ninja Turtles, and it took me 4 years and 140 pages.
So that's a long grudge, man. That's a long grudge.
Yeah.
You're saying 100. So wait, you're saying it took you 4 years to write this thing. You were left the movie so disheartened that you went back and was like, let me write a better version of this real quick.
Yeah, and it took me, mind you, I'd been, living my life and doing my job and, writing other scripts along the way, because I'm always working on 2 or 3 different scripts at a time in different stages or levels of completion or drafts or whatever. But yeah, it took me 4 years to get it done, but I got it done about a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you something about this though too. What do you think about, because like Dev said at the beginning, me and Dev are we're just finding the right thing that we can work on together. What do you think about writing partners like the Coen brothers or something like that? Do you think that could be is it a select people that can do that, or do you think that a good writer should be able to do that?
So that's a really good question. And the true answer to that question is I don't know. The Coen brothers are very good at what they do because they're brothers. And like I said, the first rule of writing is writing what you know. And growing up together, they probably had a lot of the same exact experiences. So they were able to use that to their advantage. The same thing with the Abbott brothers, the guys who created Stranger Things.
Right.
The same thing can be said for Nick Kroll and John Mulaney. They write together a lot of really, really good.
Wait, John Mulaney, is he a comedian? Is he that guy that's a comedian?
Yes.
Do they both do Big Mouth?
Yes.
So, this is weird to me. I didn't know John and him were brothers. So, I mean, that kind of makes sense why they're on the show.
They're not brothers. They're not brothers.
Oh, they're just working together. Oh, okay.
Yeah. No. I'm not saying they're brothers. I'm saying that they work together. But since they both, grew up in the same, or not that they grew up in the same part of the country, but they kind of met at a point in their lives where they were both up and coming as comedians and, trying to get their career started or whatever. And it's just like any other relationship. When you have a rapport, when you have a good connection, you just, take it and run and see what it can get you. When I was in film school, I wrote a web series with a friend of mine. And we wrote a couple of episodes, and it's there, like it's sitting there in both of our hard drives. Excuse me. But nothing has come of it. Like, and writing is a very long process, and like I said, it took me a couple of years just to, mess around with a Ninja Turtles fan script. But even when you're a professional, for some writers, you know, it can take them years to get something the way they want it or the way it needs to be before it gets optioned or sold or produced. So
And
it,
that's the process. That's
yeah,
the process that I had trouble for. That this virus made me think about.
mhm,
Like, I'm not the person. I'm a quick mover. I want to just go and get things done. In that
right,
process, I was always told I used to win since back in the day, in like the third grade. I would always win creative writing things. I
mhm,
wrote music, nice stuff like that. And I just didn't have. I don't have that patience. I want the microwave factor and stuff. I
yeah,
want a program where I can just talk to it and it's going to put it in proper form, because I know there's those processes where you're going to get it back with notes and stuff
right,
like that, and you got
right,
to go back and do it again. And I hear about it takes a long time for a lot of people to get movies made. Like you said, you got one in the tuck. I
yeah,
believe there's a time and place for that, because there was a time I wrote a crazy, like a books. A friend of mine became a publisher in New York. She hit me back. She says, "Hey man, you got great stories in life, man. Write a book, send it to me." And it kept coming back and forth. And I was like, well, this story's been told before. But key thing she told me, she said, "Hey man, every story's been told. It's
yep,
not told by you though." And that
exactly,
always stuck to me right there. Like, that's the truth,
absolutely, yeah,
because they got movies. Like, I've come from the '80s too. I
mhm.
like the 16 Candles, whatever that dude was that made
John
those
Hughes,
movies.
John Hughes,
John Hughes. I love
yeah,
his movies. And it's the same thing over and over. And then you get to something like McLovin. What's that movie with McLovin?
Super bad.
Pineapple, oh, super
Super
bad,
bad.
super bad. You're right. Yeah, yeah,
You you have that movie that's made like that, like every year, like a
yeah. Hmm.
school, movie, buddies going through crazy messes and figuring out. And I just think that's the process that was stopping me from actually getting to where I needed, because I just hated the process of actually writing, sitting there and then getting it back. Oh, I got to do this again and all that. So you brought up
Hmm.
a key point right there. Is like, things are going to take a while to get there, and I think a lot of people take too much, uh, put too much pressure on themselves to write out something that's so perfect. I think the best things that I've ever seen are imperfect. Like, they're
Hmm.
missing them, breaking them rules you were talking about, but it still came back and made sense.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. That's how you do it. And it's your publisher friend was exactly right. Every story has been told. They just haven't been told from your perspective, from your experiences, from how you process those experiences. And it kind of circles back to when you're creating your characters and having them evolve and change throughout your story, how they change, how they evolve, at what rate they evolve, who's around them to witness it. Like all these things go into play, and that's what makes it unique.
Awesome.
Yeah. So another question I had for you, Gabriel, had to do with
Hmm.
writer's block, because I saw you did a podcast talking about writer's block, and
Yes.
I purposefully stopped listening through like the first 2 minutes of it, because I wanted to hear how this kind of turned out for you, because you started telling me that you had a writing professor tell you that basically it's how would I put it, it's it's BS. Writer's block is BS. It's a cop out. Bleed in front of the
Right.
keyboard, in front of that typewriter, bleed in front of it, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering what tactic or approach did you end up by the end of that saying that was the truth about writer's block, and how you deal with it.
So for me, and for what they say for a lot of writers or for a lot of people that are trying to write, is um, you have to read something that either it's I don't mean to like dance around the question. It's just every person's different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and like everyone handles um, obstacles or challenges different when it comes to their writing. So um, reading is always something that has helped me and has helped a lot of people. reading something that you are really interested in, or something that uh, in in relation to the genre, the kind of story that you want to tell. Um, and the other thing that people do is you read something completely opposite of that. Read something that you otherwise wouldn't read or have no interest in, because at that point you just tell yourself, well, screw this. I'm just gonna, write what I want to write and not force myself to read what I don't want to read. And like putting themselves in that kind of mindset helps them. I read a lot already because every writer has to read a lot, but I, in particular, read a lot for research for a lot of my stories. I wrote a what's called a historical fiction, which is a fictional
Abraham Lincoln
story,
Vampire Slayer.
not that
not,
fictional, a little
not
more realistic than that.
okay.
But no, I wrote a historical fiction based on Jack the Ripper.
Mm.
And uh, you want to talk about taking the time to, uh, get it right and put in the work. That took me 11 years to write.
Holy heck.
Uh, yeah, it started out as a short story I wrote in high school. And then I pitched it to one of my writing professors when I got to film school because I just held on to it for all those years. And he was like, "Yeah, you need to make this into a feature-length script." And I'd already spent like 4 or 5 years prior to that researching, and I read a bunch of books on the case and on the theories as to who the Ripper really was. And fast forward about 11 years later, and I submitted it to a festival called the Nichols Fellowship, which is a screenwriting festival that's hosted by the Oscars, by the Academy Awards.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
I was a top 15% finalist. So I was out of, I don't know how many thousands of entries, within 300 and something people of winning an Oscar technically. So I'm doing something right. It's just
Mm.
a matter of right place, right time, and
Yeah.
you know, having the right people notice or read my stuff or watch this show
Yeah, right.
and
Well,
Pick it up.
and reach out to me.
yeah, that's it's all about the opportunities. I did get a chat here from our guy Ryan Rader. Shout out Ryan Rader. He says, "What helps the creative flow get going?" He also said, "Great film." I don't know if he was referring to film you said or the movie I said, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer. But regardless, I'm sure he's talking about Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer because that was a totally
Probably.
fantastic film. Yeah, but what helps the creative flow for you, Gabriel? And then of course, Coach probably has something he wants to say after you answer that. So.
So what helps is just surrounding yourself with the things that make you happy. And it may sound cliche, and honestly, and in these times, understandably, it may seem a little more difficult than it normally would be. But just to surround yourself with the kind of art you like, the music you like, the movies you like, the people you like, just things that make you happy. Um, that's what works for me. Now, some people have the exact opposite kind of drive or fuel, is because they write because of sadness or depression or frustration.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, uh, basically what I'm saying is inspiration can come from anywhere. Everyone's different. So, to the person, bringing in the question, you have to essentially do trial and error, test yourself as to like, all right, what is going to put me in the mood to be creative? So for me, it's reading. For me, it's reading, and sometimes and this also helps with the writer's block, is I'll go back and look at some of my old scripts, and I'll reread them, and it'll give me an idea for something else. Because the two most terrifying words you can say to any writer or any artist is "what if?"
What
Because
if?
after they bleed over the keyboard, as you say, um, I think it was Hemingway that said that originally. Um, After you bleed over the keyboard and you put your heart and soul into it, and someone reads it or someone looks at your art and then they come back to you, and no matter how much praise or how much accolade they give you, just those two little words, what if, and immediately uh,
Hey,
yeah, like you can just tank, if you're not accustomed to getting any kind of criticism or any kind of feedback in ways that you aren't expecting.
yeah, and I think when you go back to what you were saying, like you had four different scripts on the table. Is that from the
Mhm.
mood thing? Because I do that too. Like I might feel sad and be like, oh, this is I'm gonna write about this, or I'm happy today, or I find different ways and I have different things that are sitting there and I'm starting to learn how
Right.
to start finishing them. Is that one of the processes too?
One of them is that, yeah, based on how I'm feeling. Another reason for it is because of just the ADD. Um, you
Yeah.
know, I'm really indecisive at times when it comes to my work. Excuse me. And but like when I sit down to write, I'll open like four or five scripts at a time, and I'll look through it and I'll be like, all right, where did I leave off here? Where did I leave off here? And then based on where I left off, I'll be like, oh, I remember what I wanted to put next, and I'll just write that out, and I'll finish the scene or I'll finish the act or whatever. Um, and sometimes I'll just look at it and be like, nope, not gonna work on you today, and I'll look at the other one. So yeah, like it varies.
Finding inspiration. And one more
Yeah,
thing I wanted to ask about that before I forget it because I
yeah,
lose
yeah.
my mind. Sorry,
Nope,
guys.
go
Um,
for it.
but the festival part because that's something I always encourage. I don't know the full process of it. You
Right.
mentioned you came in what 15th place in one of them things. I
It,
would imagine
yeah,
festivals have uh, different things to them, but is that
sure.
a step? Is that a step where you get like is that the final step where you're saying before somebody picks it up, or you're hoping that somebody sees it there and it gets an option or something?
Right. So it can be. Um, so film festivals are a lot like college scholarships. And what I mean by that is if you do the research, there is a scholarship for everything. If you're a student, or a grant for everything, if you know how to what to look for. Um, Festivals there's so many going on year round all over the world, and a lot of them cater to specific genres, to specific lengths, specific film mediums. I mean, there are even some festivals that cater to, the Hispanic community, the LGBTQ community,
Hmm.
uh, the African American community. There's something for everybody.
Right.
And there's this great website called Coverfly,
Uh,
and when you look at it, it will show you like a list, this huge list of all the festivals that are, pending or up and coming.
You
And
got
when
Coach
you,
writing shit down. He's over there with a pen and paper. I see him. He's over like, all right, right,
I
okay.
mean, yeah, man, like, that's what I'm here for, right? I'm trying
Yeah,
to,
absolutely. I love it. That's all. I love it because Coach is like, I was like, I'm getting that. We generally do want answers. I mean, when you're talking, I'm taking everything as well as he is into consideration. Sorry, go ahead,
no,
continue.
no, no, you're good, you're good. So yeah, and when you, when you look at these festivals and you read through them, a lot of them will say, you know, what kind of panel of judges they'll have. Most of them have industry professionals, which is obviously what you want. And then depending on the scope or the size or the amount of entries they get, like in an average year or whatever, um, there can be cash prizes. There can be, as far as like prizes go, like prize packages go, there could be cash prizes. There could be phone calls or emails or conversations with industry professionals, agencies, managers, and stuff like that. And ultimately, there's also, some of them will even negotiate with you and to option out to buy the rights of your story so that it can hopefully be made into a film. So
Right.
yeah, like there's lots of different um
Different ones like
opportunities different opportunities, different aspects, and different variations of festivals when you submit. I will say this, like, um, you know, submit, and if you can find them, because a lot of festivals will also give you the option of, after you submit, they will provide feedback, like professional feedback on your story, whether you place or win or not. They'll offer, it generally costs a little extra to do it, but especially if you're first starting out, I would say that it's worth to invest in that, so that you can hear from industry professionals that will give you, hopefully an honest take or perspective on your story, and what you can do to improve on it, or to tell you where your strengths or your weaknesses are as a writer overall, so you know what to focus on or look at as you work on the new draft or the next story.
Right.
Awesome. Good information. Good information.
Yeah, seriously, this has been very informative to me, and Coach as well, and anybody out there listening. Because Ryan Rader, actually, Ryan me and him are actually working on a project right now. That's the project me and him are working on, some kind of piece about what's going on with the coronavirus, but more of like a slice of life piece where it's talking more about someone like, the idea for the story as of right now is we want to do something with an addict who maybe comes out of rehab or something during this time, and then of course with the whole system being broken down around him, and already being isolated enough, it's not already that, like, when you're someone who's an addict and whatnot, people kind of like, and then you've come out or people know about you and your habit, especially, that they kind of put you in this box, and then now you have to stay away from everybody and you're trying to rebuild your life, but like the whole world around you is falling apart, would be the general concept of it. So that's what we're working on now. So I'm glad that Ryan popped in and stopped by, and hopefully he heard the information. Now, what was I going to say? So let's switch gears, man. We got a lot of screenwriting information, and I appreciate it. And I did want to ask, you were talking specifically about screenwriting, correct? You weren't talking about like actual film submissions, like people who go to film festivals and submit films.
Yeah.
Okay.
My focus is just screenplays. I just write the stories. I leave it to other people to direct it and produce it and act it.
I was going to ask you, has anyone ever taken something that you've written and made it into a film?
Yes, one.
Okay.
So here's what I can tell you. I can't tell you a lot. I was commissioned for one script shortly after I finished school, for a graduate student that was, at my school that was about to graduate. He needed a script, so I wrote one up for him. But I actually just optioned my first script to a professional production company a couple of months ago.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So so we're gonna be watching for that film, huh?
Got a plug now, Dev.
Yeah, right. It's like, plug it.
No, like honestly, I can't say anything else right now, because of like NDA and so forth.
Right.
I can't give any specs. What I can tell you is that a lot of it's been slowed down now because of what's been going on. Right. But once I get the green light to, tell people more information, damn sure I'll be telling everyone.
Right. You'll have to come back on the show and tell us, just to pop in, just pop up on us.
Absolutely. I'd love to. I'd love to.
So this is what I meant by switching gears, though. Let's get to the martial arts action over here, because you said you've been doing martial arts for 20 years?
25, 30 years, yeah. Well, yeah, like on and off about 30 years.
On and off 30 years. Okay, so what exactly did you partake and participate in?
So I did Taekwondo for about 23 or so years of that. I got 2 black belts in that. I did a couple of years of Judo, a couple of years of Goju-Ryu, which is a Japanese style, and I did about little under a year of capoeira.
Capoeira, which is that like Brazilian fight dancing?
Yeah, that's the Brazilian. Yes.
I made a movie on that with the kids and I.
Yeah, only the strong.
Yeah,
only the strong.
Yeah. Yes.
I know capoeira from watching Bob's Burgers. That's where I first learned about capoeira. That's the first time I learned about it was I watched like, it was like the first season.
I came into the office one day and you were in there doing it by yourself.
Nah, bro, that was yoga. Yeah, you got that. You got them twisted. That's a different one. That's a different one.
Hey, a question on that.
Yeah.
So, combining movies and martial arts. I hear a lot of stories about three people that are pretty successful in the movie field. One is Bruce Lee, Steven Seagal, and Van Damme. Okay. What do you think about them as with their fighting? Do you think because I hear conflicting stories on all of them. Do you think they were all professionally trained and could really kick some ass in real life?
So Bruce Lee absolutely was professionally trained. You know, there have been many movies and books told and written on his life story and on his life's work. Van Damme, I know, was a competitive fighter for a spell. Before he got into acting. Jet Li, which is one that you didn't mention, but Jet Li performed for, I think it was Nixon when he was like 9 years old.
Okay, that's interesting.
And he was part of the national wushu team when he was very young, and that's how he got started. Seagal, I'm really on the fence on. I really don't know, to tell you the truth. I think once upon a time, like in the early 90s when he was really like in his prime, as it were, I think that he had some kind of a skill set. But something that you need to understand is obviously when you're watching these films, even though a lot of times they're professional, they are professional martial artists, professional stuntmen, they're not really hitting each other. And now there's obviously like a lot of wire work involved in some of them and stuff like that, like to assist, and then editing tricks and so forth. I don't want to take away or diminish the accomplishments or the skill sets of those people. I'm saying that they, the magic of film make it look better or faster than what it really, really is.
Yeah, true.
So
I agree. I was just curious if you knew about it in the martial arts sense, growing up in it and being a movie buff. Like if you've seen it, you were like, "That's bullshit."
Well,
that's right.
Yeah, right.
Well,
you just start screaming at the screen.
Well, what I can tell you is this. What I can tell you is when I was in film school, because of my martial arts background, I was asked to do like stunt work or to train the actors on, and choreograph like the fight scenes and stuff for the films and whatever. And something that a lot of filmmakers don't really know or understand or respect is that these things take time. Choreograph. It's just like blocking, and when I say blocking, I mean arranging the movement on the set or on the stage. If you do like a play or whatever, blocking is just how the characters
move
or the actors move on set or in the scene, right? So the same thing is considered and meticulously thought of for fight scenes and action scenes and stunt scenes tenfold. And unfortunately, in my experience with working with directors, one in particular, I'm not going to name names because I'm not about throwing people under the bus here, but one in particular had really no understanding or regard for that. And a buddy of mine who is a professional fight choreographer who was on set that day was working with the actors, and he told the director, okay, I need, 7 hours to get the actors acclimated to the set, because they were on set for the first time. I need a few hours to get them acclimated to their surroundings, to get the measurements right for the shots, for the camera, and all these things go into it. And the director just said, you got 45 minutes because that's how long we have on set here.
Wow.
To shoot. And it just completely deflated not only the scene, but really like the film. Like it was like the showdown, like the big finale fight, and it looked really, really bad. And
Throw him under
so
the bus.
Listen, I kind of want Gabriel to dox this guy right now. You gotta
no,
you
no,
gotta
no, no, no,
spill
no. I'm
tea.
I'm not about that. I'm not about that life. No, sir.
We get it. We're not really about that too,
Dude.
but it's kind of fun if somebody does it.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. When I see a movie about football and I see the coaches and I see all that shit,
Right.
I'm like, bullshit. No coach would say that. No coach would call that play in that situation. Just a whole bunch of different things.
Oh, I don't
in the
know,
way,
Coach. You
uh,
you said I don't know, Coach. I said you look at Mike Tomlin sometimes and be like I'm like, why would you do that? And he's a professional getting paid millions, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh,
right,
boy.
right.
But you're right. They should
Yeah,
get
but-
it right in the movies. Damn it, they should get it right in the movies,
Right.
but not in real
I
life.
totally get it. It's just frustrating when you see things knowing that comes from your craft. You know about the stuff, and then you see that scene, you'd be like, nah, that's not how that would go, or that's not how that person would move. Yeah, I totally get that in saying that.
Yeah. Well, listen. Now we're back to films here. I kind of have to know this before I leave because Gabriel, you've been talking about all these movies and stuff that you enjoy and also ones that you hate, and you seem so knowledgeable about the writing process. I have to know your top 3 worst and favorite movies, and then me and Coach can pitch in to say what we
God.
like and don't like. It
That's
just don't, and they don't have to be definite. There's no particular order like 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
Just say like the 3 favorite movies that you like off
Okay.
the top of your head.
All right. So I will say this. Recently, some guilty pleasures of mine, and I've been, huge fan of pretty much all of his work, but one in particular,
Birdemic.
for top like favorites. Um,
I was messing
Isle
with
of
you.
Dogs
What's that?
by Isle of Dogs by
Isle-
Wes Anderson.
Is that the one where it's animated?
Yeah, it's the stop motion one with the dogs on the garbage island in Japan. Um, Amazing, amazing film. Um, so that would be number one. Number two, honestly, right now, because I'm prisoner of the moment or whatever, is Parasite. Let it be known that Bong Joon-ho, the director of that, got as many Oscars that night as Spielberg has for his career.
I remember that. I seen that on there.
Let it, yeah.
There was some
Um,
story behind that too. I'll remember it, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine, you're fine. And the third one, honestly, it's a guilty pleasure of mine. It's a remake. It's called The Lady Killers. And yeah, and I believe it's a Coen Brothers movie. Let me just double check that for you real quick. So The Lady Killers is, in my opinion, Tom Hanks's best kept secret. It came out in '04. Yeah, it was written by the Coen Brothers. It came out in '04, and it's about this band of misfits that cajole or convince this sweet old lady to let them they have like this orchestra, like this band, to use her basement as like a practice space for their orchestra, and it's all a ruse so that they can build a tunnel in the underneath their house to rob a riverboat casino.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's got Tom Hanks, Marlon Wayans, J.K. Simmons, Zima, this band of amazing character actors that, for me, again, like looking at it from like a writer's perspective, or seeing all the different types of characters and how those characters evolved throughout the story. And I just loved the idea of, you had all these characters from super different backgrounds, um, you know, economically, ethnically, whatever, be able to come together to work towards a common goal, and how it is that each character was inspired or convinced or tricked into doing that, I thought was very clever. So I really appreciated that. Worst three, and this the first one breaks my heart because
Hold
it's
on.
one of my favorite.
Before
Yeah.
you go to the worst three, I kind of want to give my top three off the top of my head.
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
Okay, so my top three off the top of my head, John Carpenter's The Thing. You're gonna know maybe a
Okay.
common theme here with creature features. And I'll give you one of my guilty pleasures as well. John Carpenter's The Thing. It's a great story. For one, it's unique in the practical effects. It's an old monster movie, but I believe it's one of those monster movies that did things right. And also it builds a lot of world building and characters in a very short amount of time. So I liked it. There's a lot of characters in that. Two, Jurassic Park, obviously OG Jurassic Park. My love for dinosaurs.
Yes.
I mean, it's
Yes.
fantastic. And of course, my guilty pleasure here is Good Luck Chuck. I don't like romantic comedies. I hate comedy movies. Honestly, like I really don't like watching them. Except there's only two exceptions, which are like those three Will Ferrell ones, Talladega Nights and Step Brothers, and the one where the campaign where he's with Zach Galifianakis. But
Yeah.
outside of those, I really don't like comedies. I'm really weird about comedies. I don't enjoy them that much. But Good Luck Chuck. If a girl ever says let's watch a romantic comedy, I'll say Good Luck Chuck, and that's pretty much it. So those are mine.
Bro, if you didn't even have to say, you gotta have that for game when you're talking to girls. You pull the romantic comedy out, bro. It's a deal. It seals the deal, bro. You gotta have that in your repertoire. Shouldn't be a guilty pleasure. You should just have it in the holster ready to pull out.
Right. Well, I'm just saying it as in like I genuinely enjoy Good Luck Chuck. Even so, like it is a romantic comedy that I would watch with my lady.
All right, I got my top three. I'm more of me and Deb talk about this a lot. I'm more of a practical guy. I don't really like watching Transformers and all that. I will watch it. It depends on who I'm with. If I'm with kids and we're saying, let's go to the movies, let's go to the movies. But if I prefer to watch something, it's something believable, something that gives me nostalgia or something like that. So I go with, in no particular order, The Outsiders, I think is a great movie. Mm-hmm. The cast and people that were in that movie and how they pulled that off was excellent. Taking it from a book and putting it on screen. Goodfellas, for the simple fact is I just love mob movies that tell that whole story and the way it was shot by Scorsese, the way he continued those shots. I love those type of shots in movies where they do that continuance and just the whole progression of the story. And it kind of being loosely based off of a real true story. And then Boys in the Hood, because the simple fact that all those people were young actors coming up. John Singleton was a young director, fresh out of USC, and got a movie going on. So that was inspiring, and it was telling a true story of what was really going on. So it hit my heart. So those are just some of the three. I've seen a lot lately. No guilty pleasure, Louis, because I pretty much will watch anything, but I just can't get into like a sci-fi and all that stuff. It's just not my thing. I like more realistic things.
Okay. All right. So my bottom three, the first one is really heartbreaking because I was a little obsessed with the book for a couple of years. It's called Ready Player One.
Oh wow, it was really I was honestly gonna say you were gonna say 50 Shades of Grey, but I didn't. No, I'm just playing. No, but I never got to see it. But what I heard, it was so disappointing because the story was just everywhere.
It was so random. It didn't really follow the book at all. It felt like a completely different story. They just kept the characters the same for the most part. Mm-hmm. But read the book. I absolutely recommend the book. My students actually are reading it right now, and then what we do is we read the book and then we watch the movie, and then they do a compare and contrast essay. And by the time they finish the movie, the last couple of years I've been teaching it, they'll look at me, they'll be like, Mr. Rodriguez, like, why'd you put us through that?
Why'd you put us
through the movie? Another movie that I was really just straight up disgusted by was Mother.
Really? Interesting.
The Aronofsky thing. Yeah.
I have to know why, because listen, I sat and I watched that movie, and a lot of people, like when I watched it, they were waiting for me to like gasp and like explode with love for this film, and I said it was all right. It's like, I get it as an artsy piece, I get it, whatever, but I'm like, still at the same time, it's so damn confusing, and like it felt like, like I said, like to me, it just felt too, I don't know, weird, I guess. I'm like, it's okay as what it is, but
Yeah, Aronofsky is one of those filmmakers that, he does a lot of shock value stuff. Like all of his films are about shock value, and he tries to do it with, with a theme or an undertone, as all filmmakers do or should do. I just think that there were elements in that film that were completely unnecessary, and this is where he lost me, where he would do something that was not, you know uh it wasn't intricate, or it wasn't um adhered to the character's development or the progression of the story. It was simply for shock value. So I'll say it, like, and spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, or whatever, but when the baby dies
oh yeah.
and they start eating it, I was like, no, no, I'm done, and I almost walked out after that. But
Right,
I
and then
was,
like there's like all the like war things going on, like everybody's
yeah,
fighting. Like I mean, like I get it. Like it's like I said, a Michael Bay kind of like, oh cool climax,
it,
I guess. But I mean, it's like, what is it really? Where's the attachment I have to the character at the end?
yeah, like it was, yeah, like it tried to be a zombie movie, but it wasn't a zombie movie, and it was just,
Yeah.
I I don't know, like, it for me, like, I didn't, no.
But I'm
And the
glad. I'm just glad because again, like I said, I sat in a room full of like 7 people who all when I watched it the first time, and they were all like, "You're gonna love this movie. It's gonna be great. It's fantastic." And I watched it, and I was like, it's all right.
I
And they were
couldn't do
like,
it.
they were all mad at me. They were ready to like pitchfork stab me to death. So
Yeah.
I'm glad someone else could say that. All right, and your other one?
My last one was actually this movie I had to watch for film school. It's actually an experimental film, which means it doesn't follow the three-act structure I talked about earlier. It's called Antichrist, and it's a film from Sweden, but it starred Willem Dafoe.
Oh wow.
And yeah, it was really, really hard to get through. Not only because it was told in a very, like, non-linear way, so it was really hard to follow, and not like Tarantino's movies are in a non-linear way, but like
Yeah.
really, really abstract. Um, and just, again, they put elements in the film that I thought were more just for shock value than to show uh, story progression or character development, and it was just disgusting and unnecessary. And like, I'm, I'm sure you're sensing a theme here. Like, I don't consider myself squeamish per se,
Hmm.
but at the same time, like, I'm not the kind of person that enjoys, even though it's obviously like fake and, a movie or whatever, like, I don't enjoy watching those kinds of things being projected. So,
Yeah, like blood and gore and like kind of like all that crazy stuff.
yeah, yeah, blood and gore, and just, yeah, we'll leave it at that. Again, like, I don't want to go into, like, because I don't want to traumatize
Yeah,
the
yeah.
viewers right now. So,
Right. A
yeah.
tirade. All right, coach. What do you got? I'm putting you on the spot.
Just off the top of the head, some of that I've seen like lately, last couple years. I'm sure there's more, but I would have to say, just going on the other end of saying Goodfellas was one of my best movies. Watching The Irishman, I thought it was just horrible. I thought they missed a lot of spots they could have gotten. I think Scorsese's getting up there where he might be losing a little bit of his skill, or he might just be delegating it right at this point to other people and just putting his name on it. I didn't really like that, especially with the cast they had, the great cast they had. I thought it could have been a lot better. Um, any of Will Smith's movies for the last probably 20 years, disappointing, except like Bad Boys and a couple here and there. I just can't watch. I mean, he started off so great. I thought he was going to just crush it, but it just got horrible to me, some of the choices he tried to make. I think he was chasing an Oscar or something like that and missed, without just making passion projects and let that stuff come. Um, And then I have to go with something from my past. I didn't like how they shot the Tupac movie, the Hughes brothers, the way they did it. It was just, they had cell phones in the crowd of the movie, stupid stuff they were overlooking on who really Tupac was, because I'm real big on, I love watching, what do they call those, biopics. I love biopics on real history of things that happen and pinpointing those things. It gives me, especially if I grew up in that era, it gives me that nostalgia. I just think they did a horrible job on depicting some of the things that he was going through. They just picked selected things, like the things that were in the spotlight, and it kind of made him look like not who he really was. I think they missed some big parts in there, so I was very disappointed in that one.
Yeah. Well, Coach, I'm going to meet you somewhere with Will Smith there. Because my top three, one of them is After Earth. That movie was so horrible. We did a movie review where we sat down. And now, Gabriel, I'll have to invite you to do one of those sometime with me, where we actually sit down and view a movie and then review it and just pretty much talk about it, give a commentary. You ever see what was that show called? Mystery Dinner Theater something 9000? Yeah, something like that, where you talk over the movie and then I edit it up and I'll make it into a review. I'll have to invite you to do that sometime. But
yeah, man, that would be great.
But what was I going to say? So the After Earth, I did one with one of my friends. That movie was so horrible. Oh my goodness, I was so bored. I didn't care about Will Smith or Jaden Smith at all. The whole movie, it was just them in frame, every single scene, and I couldn't deal with it. It was just and every time, you never feared for anybody's safety in the whole movie. You knew it was all gonna be fine at the end, at all. There wasn't even a chance of danger. My second one, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. It was a movie that I originally watched the first time, and I was like, wow, I kind of like it. And then I watched it the second time, and I just realized, wow, everything is so contrived in this. It's not even funny, and a lot of the scenes aren't even very enjoyable. Not even the volcano explosion scenes. I miss practical effects, and I love monster movies. And what the problem is with monster movies nowadays is that they're all CG. Right. Give the practical effects. Give me something that's really there. That's why I like John Carpenter's The Thing and whatnot. There was something there for you to actually tangibly see. And then finally, the last one for me. Oh goodness gracious! I just slipped my mind. Fallen Kingdom. Oh my goodness, I've lost it. I had it right there on the tip of my tongue, and now I've forgotten it.
What's your take? I'm sorry, and if you remember, stop me or interrupt me, whatever. You say that you like to see the creature, that you enjoy practical effects. You're not a big fan of CGI. What do you think of Del Toro's movies? Shape of Water, Pan's Labyrinth, Hellboy,
Shape of Water. Okay, so Hellboy, fantastic. I like not in all the storytelling elements, but and the physical look and everything.
Right.
I like Hellboy, and even the Golden Army wasn't a bad film either. In terms of the actual look of the look and the design of everything. I enjoyed those, and also they're more actiony. In horror, you have to be afraid of something. I like monster horror. Right.
Okay.
And it has to be physically there. You know what I mean? Pan's Labyrinth is also good. I love Pan's Labyrinth, even though it has some CG elements and stuff. The storytelling's good. The creatures are good. And that's because it's a fantasy. It's got some horror elements in it. Don't get me wrong. But I love Pan's Labyrinth, the creature with the eyes and everything. Oh, don't get me started on that. But love Pan's Labyrinth. Now, the one I'm not really the biggest fan of is The Shape of Water. I couldn't get into it. It was just it was too weird for me, just weird. So I was like, no thanks, pass. It reminded me a lot of Shyamalan's movie, the one with the spirit. I can't remember the name of the damn movie, but the spirit of something. I don't know, whatever it was. Shyamalama made that movie, and that was it. But I couldn't remember that last movie that I dislike, and now it's gonna drive me crazy. That's it. It was called Life. It was a movie where they put Ryan Reynolds on the front of the movie, and he was in it for all of a solid 25 minutes before they killed him off because they couldn't afford him. So spoilers there. So if you were gonna watch it, and basically the whole concept of the movie, after being named Life, all it was about was life finds a way, and they find this alien life form, and the damn thing is just by the end of the movie, you just said F you. F you, because the whole movie you knew what was gonna happen before it happened, and you were like, give me, the characters could never catch a break. You knew the thing basically was going to win at the end, and it was give me a break. Just give me a break.
Right. We're getting close to that time, but I got one more question for everybody. Just give me one. What do you think about remakes? I got personally, I think like what being from the era that I was from, I like horror movies. I don't like them no more because they do nothing for me. I think all the like the Halloween franchise, I was so young when I seen them, it ruined it for me because I was like, that's how it's got to be. That's how it's got to be. And so when they tried to remake those movies, it was just horrible to me. It didn't feel, you know what I mean? So I kind of say stay away from remakes. I don't like seeing them. I kind of get suckered into them because I think, oh, maybe this one will hit. And it really doesn't. You know, if I see a couple of them, no matter what it is. What do you guys think about remakes?
Devin, you want to start us off?
Yeah, right. I'll say this. Remakes to me, if they're warranted, because I've seen movies that are old that have potential and they didn't live up to it, and then with the technology and everything, they can basically be reinvented and made into a better film, I think. So I mean, I have a mixed feeling. Most of them are usually bad because the remakes are just trying to like change something and become something else. Hey, Austin Faye, how's it going? He said remakes and live action remakes are trash. Yeah, that's one thing too. Live action remakes are just garbage. I mean, like Disney's been making these live action remakes that are just like Aladdin. Everyone went to go see Aladdin. There's people that were like, "Oh yeah, look at Aladdin." I'm like, Aladdin was garbage. The new Aladdin was trash. And anybody want to fight me in the chat, you can go ahead and do that. But it was garbage.
Another Will Smith.
What's that?
It wasn't in it. Wasn't Will Smith in Aladdin?
Right. Will Smith was in it. Right. So like I said, you make a remake. Basically, it's like, if you're remaking something, you have to take for me to actually say it's a good remake, you have to take the elements that were good from the original and then expand upon them and, you know, try and leave away some of the bad that usually comes from maybe like 80s cheese or wherever the movie came from. A good movie, Old Boy. That was a good example of a horrible remake. Gabriel, have you seen Old Boy?
I've seen the original, the Korean one. It's amazing. I've seen just a few scenes of the remake, and I knew right away, like, even after I think just watching the trailer, I was like, no. If you could give me 1 second, I just realized that it's getting a lot darker in here. I never turn on any of the lights, so I probably just look like all you see is my teeth. So
no, that's fine. You're adding to the element of horror right now because you just look like this figure. But go ahead if you need to turn on the lights.
Give me a quick second. Give me a quick second. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but like I said, I mean, I don't know, Coach. I mean, what's like the worst remake you've ever seen?
The worst remake I've ever seen was, I don't know. That's not hitting my head. I probably would have to go with what I said. It was like the Halloween franchise or the Friday the 13th franchise. I'd probably be able to pull a whole bunch more out if I had
Friday
time.
the 13th just became like a porn. Like when I saw the remake of the Friday the 13th and the unrated, like it was just tits and ass everywhere. I mean, granted, like let's be real, 1980s, like, you know, like horror films, like slasher films. Let me be real. I mean, they had a lot of boobs and, you know, butts and all that shit in there. But I mean, like it was like to a next level. Like, I mean, every scene was like a sex scene basically, and that's where it happened. So, but anyway, Gabriel, go ahead. What were you gonna say about remakes?
So I agree that remakes are one of these things that so far, by and large, they're a really bad idea. And what's happening is, and something that I've seen in the film industry the last like decade or so, is they're pumping out all these remakes in part because a lot of these executives believed, well, it made money all those years ago, let's rehash it and let that generation introduce it to their kids, you know, when they saw it, you know, when they saw it when they were kids, let's introduce a new generation to this franchise. And, you know, yeah, you're right, like by and large they don't work. And another thing that's unfortunate about that, or as a result of that, is there are so few original stories being presented. And I say that with a grain of salt because, as we talked about in the beginning, every story has already been told. But, you know, telling that story in that new perspective, that new point of view, is something that I crave. And when these remakes are coming out, especially from
being presented, or is it that the gatekeepers are saying we want it this way, we don't want this type of stuff at this particular, like they're controlling the narrative of what's coming out of Hollywood, and there might be 1,000 great scripts on their thing, but they don't want to give that shot. They want to keep it in that form of what you just said, like remaking and pulling things out and trying to not give those type people a shot?
Yeah, so like honestly, it's a little bit of both. The production companies that give the filmmakers the money to make these huge projects, a lot of times it's under the contingency of, okay, it needs to follow this script, it needs to have this actor, it needs to have this kind of ending, um, and it kind of ties the hands of a lot of these filmmakers because they're not truly able a lot of times to tell their vision of the story. And so there's a lot of give and take, there's a lot of negotiation that has to happen, and trust. And I've noticed a lot of these remakes are being done by new up and coming inexperienced filmmakers, and they do it just for the experience and to get their feet wet, to do a film of that size or a budget of that size. And in that respect, if that's the case, I respect that. I understand that. Like, you gotta pay your dues or whatever. But if I were an executive, I would much rather give the filmmaker $50 million to make their story the way they want to make it and hope for the best than to give them $200 million for something that nobody asked for but everyone's seen 30 years ago.
Yeah. Well, for some of these people, though, they seem like remakes are the sure bet because the people will go and they will spend money to see the nostalgia trip or whatever the hell it is. Not always, but I'm saying a lot of the times they go and like like I said, these Disney live action remakes, like Aladdin, like grossed like a stupid amount of money, and it was and people paid to go see it, and all they had to do was make a trailer and put Will Smith in it and as Genie, and basically the movie sold. Like they're like sold, done, and then that's all they had to do, and then the movie itself felt like it had no heart or effort behind it besides doing like the live musical dance numbers, which again, even those felt like they were half-assed. I watched a review of the movie where they were showing like where parts of it were very like poorly done, and thematically it wasn't a very good film. So again, like you're saying, I mean, I think it's part of both, like you said, the money and all of that.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky. Like, there's no easy, truly one-sided answer or one-sided solution to that. Um, it's filmmaking is a very time-consuming, stressful, uh, you know, excruciating process, and there's a lot of people involved. A lot of people involved. Right. You may only see the name of the director or the name of the actors or, maybe the name of the producer, but it's hundreds, if not thousands of people involved, and they all have an opinion as to what should be done or how it should be told or how it should look. You can't please everybody. So,
and that's another thing too. When you get into, you just mentioned a key factor right there. All the people that are involved. When you hear the stories about people's successes, like just in anything, in the movie things, when you find out how they got their foot in the door and the things that they were doing, them making their bones to get to where they need to go, and now what they're doing in their life, I think that's a part of it. And especially in Hollywood is a part of it. You're going to have to sacrifice something at the front end to get to be able to make your thing. And you're going to be told what to do at certain points until you get to that point where you can just pull out your money maker and be like, bam, here it is. And they have no choice but to be like, all right, here's the budget, go do it.
Yeah.
Listen, I got excited because Joshua Riddle put in the chat. Well, there's two comments I had to read. Austin Faith said, I would rather watch Disney on Ice over live action remakes any day. And then Joshua Riddle said, how do you have Mulan with no dragon or singing? I'm like, yeah, I mean, Mulan songs, man, like A Girl Worth Fighting For, that was like one of those like funny ones, man. You'll always remember that. But well, we got to get ready to wrap up the show, Coach. Unless do you have any other questions, Coach?
Nah, man, just thanks for coming on. I had a good time talking about the things, and you gave me some great information without me having to use Googles and figure out what the truth was. We definitely will keep touching with you. Let us know, man, when that project gets on, and maybe we can bounce ideas off your head. You can give us some more pointers. consultations on some things, whatever. We'll figure it out, man. I just appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, man. Thank you again for having me. It's been a lot of fun. I absolutely hope to be able to do this again with you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Gabriel, I want you, this is our last question here.
Yeah.
I want you to go ahead and just give, if there's somebody out there who wants to make a film or start writing or anything, just give your best piece of advice, so then that's how we'll wrap up the show. So make it concise, minute, go.
Okay. Write what you know. Be honest. Don't be afraid. Don't worry about, at least when you're starting out, don't worry about the grammar, the formatting, or, making sure it looks right. Especially if you're first starting out, just get your story out. Get it on paper, record yourself, tell your story, because everyone has a story worth telling.
Right.
Poignant.
Sure.
All right, guys. So then again, thank y'all for stopping out. You have been absolutely terrific and beautiful. As always, stay beautiful. Take care of yourselves. Have a good one. We are out of here. Have a good one.
Thank you, man. Take care.